Okay, welcome everyone. So now I'm going to assume that you have already um, set up an account with Posit Cloud, or you have RStudio on your computer. You've worked with RStudio before, maybe, and you've downloaded the workspace for the course materials that we're going to be using in RStudio for Math 3376. So that means you're able to access this file 10. I'm getting started with RStudio, and file 11, which is working with interactive graphics that we'll talk about next. But right now, I'm working with this module 10, getting started with RStudio, and I am in visual mode. And these are like the equivalent of text cells that we were working with in Colab. And now these are the equivalent of the code cells. And they look very much the same. Here I've got some code and I'm running R, so at least we don't need to relearn the R code that we've been working with. So I can work with code just like this. I'm going to zoom in so it's a little bit bigger. And this is now interactive. So I can hit the play button over here, and this ran this first code cell. So this code cell, right, created a vector x that goes from 1 to 4 with increments of 0.5. And now if I look in the environment window, I can see over here that X is now showing up. This is now an object that I created, and I can actually see the first element is 1, then 1.5, then 2. And this is telling me that there are a total of 7 elements in this, and this is formatted as a numerical vector. So I can see some information from the environments menu over here if I was curious. So this is helpful. It keeps track of all of the objects that have been defined in our current session. It'll also keep track of data sets that we've loaded in our session. So this just created that vector x, calculated the mean of that vector. If we want to load packages, we can load packages the same exact way. And here, if you're just loading this up, you should already have the dplyr package installed. But if you don't, you really don't want to have the install commands entered in a Quarto document, since when we're working in RStudio, one big difference between RStudio and Colab is that in Colab, we needed to install the package every single time we start a Colab session, because once I close my Colab session, those files, those package files, have only been installed temporarily, not permanently. And so when I close my Colab session, all of those files get deleted. And when I restart my Colab session, I need to reinstall that package and then load that package. When you're working with packages in RStudio, that process changes a little bit. And what I could do is come down to the console down here, and I can do an install packages command down here the same exact way. I don't need to do this because I've already installed dplyr, but what you kind of use the console for, it's like just running one code at a time, basically. So now this just downloaded the dplyr package, and that's great. I would never have to run that command ever again. Now those files from the dplyr package are stored on my local computer, or they're stored in my Posit cloud forever. So they don't get deleted from my Posit cloud. They stay in there. And so this is why this is one nice advantage of RStudio, is that it just does a better job of managing your packages compared to working in Colab, where things get only downloaded temporarily and then deleted when you close out your Colab session. So I only need to install packages one time, But if I want to access the files inside of that package, I do need to load it with the library command every single time. And so that's how I would load the dplyr package. I would just run that library command, and this gives me the usual warning that I get over here. So in RStudio, I need to run the library command every time I want to access a package, but I don't need to install the package. I only need to install a package once, but then I do need to load that package every time I start a new R session. I would still need to load that package with the library command. And in this pane in the lower right, if I click on packages, this shows currently all of the packages that I've installed. So if I'm like, hey, do I need to install ggplot2? I can see that has already been installed. And the packages that are loaded have check marks. So the dplyr package was installed, and once I load it, it gets a check mark. Yeah. So if I ran a code, that loads a package, it's going to check it off, and vice versa. If I want to load a package, I can come over here and check it. Or if I can unload it, I can uncheck it. So there's a nice way to manage packages in RStudio using this part of the pane in the lower right-hand side. It's called like the plot pane, or the files. We can access our files down here. We don't have any plots. You can see packages over here. And another nice thing to point out is if I wanted to get help on, say, the storms document, I could run !storms. And now that documentation gets opened over here on the sidebar. And I can go back to my files. And if I want to keep that help open, I can come back over here to look at the help of that over there. Great. So here I'm running code cells that have already been created. I can hit the play button. I can do like control return as well. So you can use the same keyboard shortcuts to run code cells in RStudio. And this went into the storms package and calculated the mean wind speed of all of the storms in that package. Yeah, so that's how we can run code cells. You can also use keyboard shortcuts. And if I would like to insert a fresh code cell to enter new code rather than edit an existing code cell, right now I am working in visual mode. So the way that I can do that in visual mode is I can go into insert from the toolbar. What I don't want to do is insert a code block like this, because that's going to be a non-executable cell. So I want to go to insert executable cell, and you can see the various languages that we can choose. I would like to insert an R code cell, and you can also see there's a keyboard shortcut for doing that. So I am working on a Mac, so you can see the keyboard shortcut for a Mac. So if you don't like going to toolbar menus, you can certainly just use the keyboard shortcut. And that inserts a code cell just like this. And now I could do something like 3 plus 4 and run that code cell, and out comes the output of 7. So that's how you can insert a new code cell. You can go into the insert executable code. You can go into the code menu over here, and you can say insert a chunk like that. That is another way. Code insert chunk. That inserts a chunk. You can delete them just by deleting the entirety of the code, as well as that intro R symbol that deletes a code cell. And you can also insert an R code cell by doing 3 of these single / quotes. So this is the key on my keyboard just to the left of the number 1 key, as opposed. Thing you want to be careful about is there are 2 types of single quotes. that's like a straight up vertical quote. I want to do the single quote, which is back leaning. So I enter three quotes, and then in curly brackets, I enter R. And when I hit return, that will create a code cell, just like before. So again, you can insert a code cell from the insert menu, executable cell. You can go into the code menu, insert chunk, or you can do three of these slash marks followed by R in curly breaks, hit a line break, and that will create a code cell. If you're working in the source mode instead of visual mode, then you don't have all of these toolbar menus over here. So there's no option for me to do insert, but I could do code insert chunk. But when you're working in source mode, typically you would start a code cell with these three single quotes followed by R. The difference is this doesn't close off my code cell. It assumes that everything that comes below is code. So we start a code cell with that syntax, and then I would end it with three quote marks again, three single quotes again. And now I've got a code cell that I can enter code and run code cell. So this is what it looks like when you're in source mode. It looks pretty similar as it did in visual mode, but it's slightly different. And I can delete the code chunk just like that. But I'll come back into visual mode in our document. Okay, so that is how we can insert and run our code cells in RStudio using RStudio. Okay, thank you.